дошли в Hill Season подкастът, който слага вас в центърът на приключението. Аз съм вашият домакин Иван Димитров. Hello everybody to another episode of Hill Season podcast. Today I have a very special episode with a person that has been participant in Barkley Marathons for 5 times. This is Mig. Hello Mig.
Hello everyone. Hello everybody.
Thank you for coming to the podcast. I wanted to meet you and record this conversation because we actually had a pretty long conversation about Barkley Marathons this last summer in Greece.
Yes.
And we originally met in Litochoro in Greece. This is a small town just below Olympus mountain. And there is a small running shop in that town. So I was browsing around the clothes in the running store, and I noticed this t-shirt that was signed Barkley Marathons. And I asked the lady at the counter about this t-shirt, and she was like, "Oh, this is Mig, you must meet him. He's amazing, and how many times do you have a 5 times participant in Barkley in town? You definitely have to go and meet him." And 5 minutes later I was at this coffee meeting you for the first time. And
yes, it was nice.
Yeah, it's nice. I really enjoyed our conversations in Greece.
Yeah.
So you've been
perfect.
Participant in Barkley for 5 times. How did that end up going on?
How you mean? How it started?
Yeah, let's talk about that. How did you get in Barkley in the first place?
Maybe that's an interesting story. I read an article from a Belgian runner who was participating in the Barkley in about, I think it was in 2010.
Okay.
And he wrote a race report about this, and he was writing it in my language, so the Belgian language is the same as ours. And I could, it was an amazing story about a race which had almost no finishers, and it was a grueling, hard, difficult race with a lot of mystery, and so this was very attractive story for me.
Yeah.
And I decided I wanted to know more about this race, and this race was called the Barkley. And then I was doing some research on Google and internet, and I couldn't find really some information about it. And this was even more attractive, let's say. It was even more exciting to find a race which was so cruel, which was so special, which was so difficult. And
and I remember
not at all
10 years ago there was no website. I think there was only one something website that has a few pictures and finisher list and participant list in Barkley, but there is no registration or sign up here button or something like that.
No, the Barkley, this is also what I thought was very interesting about this. There is this website where you refer to now is the website of Matt Mahoney.
Yeah, Matt Mahoney.
Matt Mahoney is a runner from Florida, I think from Miami somewhere, and he is not in the organization of the Barkley, but he writes down his personal experiences. And since a long time, because he participates a long time in this race, he writes down the results, and he gathers some race reports from other people. And so this is the only source of information about this race online. And there are more resources, but this is the only reliable point of information.
Yeah.
And this also makes it for me very interesting that there is not a website at all from the organization about the race. So the person who is organizing the race, Lazarus Lake, he is not in he doesn't really like social media. So lately he's a bit more on social media, but he is always fighting with mobile telephones, with websites, with internet. So it's not his strong point, and he just refuses to have a very nice, good website with good information about his race. It's not existing, all this. And well, this is one more point what makes this race so interesting. So it also means that if you want to participate in this race, you have to find out how it works. And you have to try to find information from other people who run the race, or from people who know. On the internet, you can hardly find out how to get into this race.
How long did it take you to find out?
Well, actually what happened is that I was so amazed by and triggered by this mysterious race, this mystery, that I even tried to find out more and more and more. It just triggered my energy, let's say, to find out how to get in. And finally, I got in contact with the writer of a book about this, one of the books about this race, Frozen Ed. He is one of the first finishers of the short version of the Barkley race, I think in the end of the 80s, 89 or something like this.
Right.
And at Furto, and he wrote a book, Tales from Out There. And in this book, you can have find some more information about the history of the race, at least. And I got, it was possible for me to get in contact with him by doing more research. And I just gave him a call and had a very nice telephone conversation with this man. And then he said to me, hey, Mick, why don't you come to Tennessee in 3 weeks because there is a race. And this was in 2011.
All right.
And I said, it's about from Amsterdam to Knoxville, where the flight tickets were about 800 or 900 euros or dollars or whatever. So it was quite a lot of money to go there. And I said, no, I mean, it's just a bit strange because I cannot even go and run there, and only to look at the race for this money, it's no, I cannot afford this. But then at night I couldn't sleep, and I was like invited by this famous guy. For me, it was a famous guy, to come and visit the race. And I said, oh shit, I'll just do it. And then next day I just got a morning coffee, and then I said, I buy a ticket. And so
Perfect.
3 weeks later I went to this race, and I just went there to visit the Barkley.
Nice.
And yeah, and then at that time there were not so many people who run the race, and there was not yet the next Netflix documentary, and there were only very few foreigners. So they said, a guy who's coming from a country which even have no mountains or famous racers or nothing, what is he doing here? And Lars was so pleased by this that he said, okay, maybe next year it's something for you to come and race. And then I said, I didn't take it serious at the time. And then about half year later, I said I tried to find out how to get in, and I found out how to get in because I just asked Les how to get in.
Yeah, you already know people now.
Yeah, so because you if you know each other personally, it's more easy, certainly at that time, to get into the race. So it was not so complicated as it is now, let's say. And then I was in the race of 2012.
So
and that was my first race.
That was your first race, and you have five. You entered 5 times.
Yeah, in 2012, 13, 14, not in 15. Again in 16, and then 2 years not, and then again it was in 2019. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And what success do you have with the race?
What I have?
What success do you have
you
with
mean?
the race? Have you been like? Did you do 3 loops? I think that's the fun run. Right?
The maximum. I run in 2012. It was my best year. I finished 2 loops.
Okay.
Within the time limits. And to put it into perspective, I finished PTL. I don't know if you know PTL, the Petit Trotalion, the long race.
So PTL,
UTMB, 300 kilometers.
Yeah.
With the teammate in 5th position, so it was like a top 10 position. Which they have not official result, but anyhow, it's something completely different. But it's I mean, it's still I was proud to make this performance, let's say, but it didn't mean that I had any chance to do more than 2 loops in the Barkley, and the Barkley is a different category, let's say. So yeah, it's very hard. It's very difficult to get into a 3rd loop or getting into a 4th loop.
But why is it so difficult? I mean, so let's compare it just a bit. Sorry, again. Let's compare it with a PTL a bit. So that's like a 300-kilometer race. That's multi-day, and when you go to Barkley, most of the people end up running just 1 loop in 12 hours, and they're over. Yes. They didn't even finish a 24-hour run, most of the people, and they have a pedigree of running like long races like PTL. So why is it so much more difficult?
I think what makes it difficult is there are a few things. One is the time limits. To do 1 loop in 12 hours or 13 hours is doable, but to do 2 loops in 20 hours or 24 hours is way more difficult. It's because of the terrain, the navigation, the fact that you do not know when the starting time is exactly. So it's very difficult to get well prepared for the race. There are some psychological aspects, like this unknown starting period. So most of the time, the night before the race, you don't sleep at all, or you sleep just very little bit.
Yeah.
The fact that there are not at all any aid stations, it makes it just more psychological, more difficult. And I also think that one of the things which is difficult is that because normally even if you want to are a very good runner, elite runner, even if you're among the people who try to finish it or even to win the race, you'll make a strategy to follow a person who's called the veteran. If you go run for the first time, you're a virgin. If you're more experienced in the race, you're called a veteran. Most of the time, virgins or not so experienced veterans follow a more experienced veteran who knows a part of the track at least, or the biggest part of the track at best, to find the books, to find where to go in this forest. And this means that you can never really race your own race. You're always in the first climb uphill to Bird Mountain, for example. People get, they destroy themselves because they just run too fast in the first parts of the race. So they are very out of their comfort zone, and they can never really race their own race, and so many people get destroyed already. To say something, but there's many aspects that it makes it difficult. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and you said that your longest run was only 2 loops. What happened there?
Yes.
Did you time out, or Was it too hard?
What you mean why I stopped? Yeah, that's a good question. I was in the time limits to start the next loop. Let's say 12 hours. If you are into a 5 loop, let's say, if you're trying to go into a 5 loop, it means that the how you say it, the after 36 hours you have to have finished 3 loops to be admitted to the 4th loop.
Right.
So if you're there not within 36 hours, you cannot go to the loop number 4 and loop number 5.
Right.
But the same counts at if you want to do something which is called the fun run, which is 3 loops within 40 hours. You get 13 hours and 20 minutes timeout. Let's say what it's called, cutoff time. And that means that I had to finish to be admitted to the 3rd loop. I had to present myself again to the yellow gate after 26 hours and 40 minutes.
Right.
And I came into the campsite, so I presented myself as a finisher of the 2nd loop after 26 hours and about 36 minutes. So I just had 3 or 4 minutes spare to get ready for the next loop.
Right.
And so I was just exhausted, and I barely couldn't talk. I was happy that I made it within the time limit, so I didn't have any power. And I had 2 guys who were preparing me to go as fast as possible to the next loop. And they changed my rucksack, they changed my batteries, they put some food in my rucksack, they put some water in my rucksack, they prepared everything, and they tried to put food in me and to put some coffee and drinks in me and to put some everything, so to get me prepared to just kick me out into the 3rd loop.
In just 3 or 4 minutes that are left, right?
This is a technique, let's say, that your crew, that the people who are helping you are just like an animal, are preparing you to in a short time as possible. Like in Formula One pit stop races, every second counts. And if you have an experienced crew, and there were some people who were very experienced who were helping me at that time, so they said, okay, Mick, we got 3 minutes to get you prepared, so we will get you prepared in 3 minutes. But I mean, after 26 hours, almost 27 hours there in the mountains, the 3 minutes just were not enough for me, and so I said, okay, man, I cannot go again for another loop now.
Right.
And let's say I couldn't get my mind and muscles and body together to say to Les, okay, here I am, Les, give me this next race number, and I'm gone. I just physically, mentally could not do this at the time. And then immediately after, of course, you regret this because you think, oh, fuck it. If you just set one step into the 3rd loop at that point, then, okay, you got again 12 hours and 40 minutes to try to get into camp again.
Right.
So 12 hours, 13 hours and 20 minutes, whatever it is. So, and then maybe you just go into the forest and have a nap, and then you'll see again. But I didn't do it.
Yeah, and I think there is one more important aspect. Even if you cannot finish the 3rd loop in time, you would still have experience with the Barkley course, know, for a few more hours.
Yes. But I can assure you that this sounds very nice if you're sitting with a nice beer or a coffee in your couch. But if you're there after such a night that you spent already in the forest and pushing yourself to get to this time limit. Then you feel totally different. And I know it's not the first ultra moment or series of ultra moments that I had in my life, of course. And in other races, I was in very bad shape and vomiting or destroyed or sore muscles or broken fingers even, or whatever happened to me, and I still went on. But and maybe it's also the magic of this race. It makes it so as a monster, let's say, that it's stronger than you are, and there are only very few people who can say that they were stronger than the monster. So, and there are very few people. So, yes, you have to be of a very extraordinary power and capacity of a very good runner to be able to finish this race. Yeah.
How much of this loop is actually running, and how much is it mental?
I think more than 1 kilometer is running, if you still can.
The last kilometer before the camp,
very
right?
few. Yeah, it's the last part it's runnable. Yes, the last kilometer it's runnable.
Okay.
700 meters.
So when we met in Greece, in the village of Litochoro, so for those that don't know, the mountain, the highest peak, I forgot the name, Mytikas. The peak Mytikas is 2,900 meters high, and the mountain basically starts from sea level. So you have almost 3,000 meters of elevation in like 15 or 20 kilometers. You have a lot of training ground in Greece, in this mountain, and still you say it's not enough.
Yes. Right. I was interviewing for my book that I'm writing now, Jared Campbell, 2 times. Jared Campbell is 3 times finisher of the Barkley, and he says one of the things he says is that most runners who are preparing for this race are focusing too much on making enough elevation in their trainings, or making enough miles or kilometers or whatever they count in, making enough hours training their bodies, but they forget about one thing which is more important, and that is that the power of the mind is way more important than your body. So it literally means that you have to be able to neglect all the signs that your body gives to stand the pain and to manage sleep deprivation, and it's more than in any other ultra. Okay, so that this management of misery, let's say, of your body and mind is way more important than even, you need your physical capacities, and you need your condition, and your muscles need to be in a very good shape. But after all, your mind, if your mind is not in the most perfect possible shape, and even then it's not enough probably. But this is, like, let's say, the most difficult factor where people just cannot do it. And this is also to do with personality, maybe. Maybe I'm just not strong enough.
How do you train the mental factor then for such a hard race?
How you train it, you mean?
Well, how do you get tough for a race like Barkley mentally?
How you get very tough? Well, the train the mental part is everyone can do it in his own way, but the mental training is also to do with you can do it in your daily life.
Right.
There's many ways to do it. If you don't like to go and training when it's raining, then it's called resistance. There is some resistance. You don't want to go training, and the training of this mental training consists in doing it anyway. So after a hard day work, you work 8 hours that day, and you come home and you plan to go for a 30-kilometer run to train, and it's getting dark now, maybe after work at this time of the year, and it's raining. So the last thing you want to do is to go for 30 kilometers in the rain. So if you decide anyway to go today because you don't want to do it, and you don't do 30 but you do 32 kilometers, this is a kind of mental training. that everyone can understand. At
Yeah.
least all runners are athletes. But there's way more things in which you can train your mind, and it's basically just to do things you don't want to do. If you don't like to do the dishes back home, do the dishes back home. If you don't
Exactly.
want to bring your kids to school, go and bring your kids to school. If you don't want to have a nice conversation with your neighbor because he's an asshole, go and make a nice conversation with your neighbor because he's an asshole, and it's mental training for you. So basically, you start learning doing things that you don't like to do. And if you're very good in this, you're very good in the Barkley.
Exactly.
But the Barkley is 60 hours of doing things that you don't want to do.
So you spent all this time thinking about and preparing for Barkley. Then when the gun starts, when the cigarette is lit, you don't want to do the Barkley because it's such a hard race.
Yes, maybe you want to do it because you learned yourself to do it because it's it's in your system.
Yeah.
If it's in your system to resist pain, to resist unpleasant moments, to do things you don't want to do, if this becomes your nature, a very interesting person who talks a lot about this is Jared Campbell. I mean, he is a very in everything he is writing, in all his race reports, in everything he's in podcasts saying. Most of the time he's not telling about his training, but he's talking about his mental endurance, let's say, and also the why question that people ask him: why do you run a race like this? It has to do with becoming a better person because of this mental training you do all the time. So for him, everything becomes not all, but many negative aspects of life for him become positive because they are a training. So he sees it, everything that is not nice for him at his work, in his daily life, in trainings, financially maybe even, he sees it as a challenge, as a kind of mental training.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting approach of running, actually.
There is one interesting story that I remember. The last finisher in Barkley, John Kelly, said that during his fifth loop, he was so sleepy and he finally gave up and he said, I have to sleep for 5 minutes. But he was so afraid that he would fall asleep and not wake up that he chose the most windy, cold and wet place possible to lay on the ground. So he would give up and go to sleep in the most uncomfortable place in order for him to wake up from that stress in 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. And that's how he was able to finish the race in time. And when you get tough enough, you can then make choices like that and be successful.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the minor things, I think. It always happens to me. I don't know if you guys, how you do it. If you race for, if it's a day race or if it's 30 hours, it's different. But if you run races which take you 50, 60, 80, 90, 100 or more hours, then you will have to sleep. So do your sleep management from time to time. And with John Kelly, he's from all the finishers, he's one of the he's not one of the strongest runners, let's say. So he's a very strong runner, but not one of the strongest Barkley runners, I think. And so he needed all his time. He could not afford, let's say, a nice half-hour sleep somewhere. So he just had to take his sleep probably like 5 minutes, quick naps on the trail, and in his case he couldn't afford to be this 5 minutes become 15 minutes because he overslept.
Yeah.
And so then basically you just try, but maybe you've got the same experience. If you want to sleep in this kind of situation, just lay down on the trail and maybe put a rain jacket, or not, maybe better not even put a rain jacket. And you'll close your eyes and you'll have a very, very quick nap, and you'll be gone for 1 or 2 minutes. and then hopefully you wake up. There are enough stories from people who didn't wake up and just slept in 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
I think it was the first finisher of the Barkley, this English guy, Mark Williams. He had this problem between loop 4 and 5.
Okay.
He wanted to sleep 10 minutes and he woke up after 1.5 hours. So he was
he lost a lot of time.
He had a little problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but sleeping and hallucinating and all these kind of extreme sleep deprivation related issues, yes, they are part of, I think of many ultras, but especially in the Barkley, because the time is very short. The time limits are, if you run Tour de Jean, you have maybe 2 times as much kilometers to go, but you got not 120 but 150 hours time. So the time limits, the 160 kilometers, so 100 mile in this terrain in 60 hours is short. I think it will be easier, the race will be way easier if the time limits would have been like 80 hours.
Yeah.
That would be, but it's logic. I mean, the time limits are really basically the killer of all this.
Okay, so Mig, we barely even touched your running experience in the Barkley Marathon, but you have a book coming out. When do you think is the release date? Do you have something scheduled, and is it going to be translated in English?
I'm doing the second round of the writing at this moment. The publisher is having a command now, and we're just making the cover, and he's designing everything. So it's before next Barkley, if there will be any in this Corona time again a Barkley, but let's say there will be a Barkley. So in the month before, in March, there will be the Dutch version of the book available on the market in the bookshop.
Okay.
Or on internet, and I hope as soon as possible, which will be next year, starting on the English translation of the book, and maybe also in cooperation with Frozen Ed, who wrote this book. We are working together from time to time to have some information to deal with a good friend. So it will be like in 2021 or in a year or something like that. I hope there will be the English version of the book. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well,
thank
you, Mig, and I hope we can read the book. I'm looking forward to it in a couple of years. So, good luck with that.
Thank you.
And finally, I would like to invite you to Bulgaria next summer. I'm organizing a couple of events, so I would really like to meet you, and I think you'll love the format of the events because they're self-support and self-sufficient entirely. So,
After all these travel restrictions, I think Bansko and the other mountains in Greece for rock climbing and for running will be they are high on my list. Since I'm most of the time living in Greece, this period. Yes, I'm really looking forward to come to visit you and to run together and run one of your races. Yes,
perfect.
Pleased to do that. Yes.
Okay, thank you for your time, Mig, and looking forward to meet you soon.
Thank you for the invitation. We'll meet soon on the trails.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.